right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in on the webinar tonight. I really appreciate it. Things have been really crazy lately, and I have a lot of new information to share with everyone, which is awesome. I know the last few webinars that we did were a little bit redundant, but I think I've gained a lot of new information for this one, and I think there's a lot of, I would say, far-reaching effects that will come from this whole situation, both positive and negative, that will impact how people should respond, what students should do, and I think what applying to college and going to college will look like in the next few years. I think it's just all going to change drastically, and unfortunately, for most students, probably not for the better. I think things will only become more difficult, and I'm going to explain a lot about that and other stuff, but let me just share my screen so we can get into this. Feel free to ask any questions you have. I'm happy to answer them mid-presentation. That's how I usually do this when I do these talks at schools and libraries and whatnot. So, feel free to join in. Anyone that, well, sorry, I'm telling you. Anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Nick I'm also known as, I guess now, Nick the Tutor. I've been doing this for quite a long time. I've been tutoring for over a decade now. I own Curvebreakers, which obviously is the company that's putting on this presentation. I personally scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests. I'm a law school graduate and licensed attorney, and as a company, we're trusted by multiple school districts. We have a full-time staff of tutors and assistants that can help you with any educational needs that you do have. And we have a very rigorous approach. So when our office was open, we were doing diagnostic tests every weekend. I'm going to update you on what we're doing with those now. But we're also constantly updating our clients and the community on the developments with these tests, and that's why I'm doing this webinar. We held off for a few weeks to wait for more changes to happen, and now I felt it was necessary based on some new information that I got, and obviously a lot of news that's come out. I hope all of you are doing well. I know many of you who are in here. I hope all your families are healthy and feeling great. Obviously, this has been crazy, so we stick together. We'll all get through this. So that's why I'm doing this, help you guys get the right information. I can be found on other social media platforms. I do post a lot now on YouTube, various videos of this kind of nature. Maybe they're a little bit more entertaining, but at the same time, I try to educate, and that's one of the things that I really have been working on recently in my time now that I've been at home rather than at the office. And I just wanted to point out before I got started that we do have this page here, which is a massive amount of free resources. I'm going to get to how much we've posted on that, but that's something that we, with this, ample time as a company we've spent working on. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So as you know, many states have canceled school for the entire year. Some have not. We're still waiting on some guidance, I guess, for New York, what's going to happen. It seems up in the air. You might get a disagreement between different politicians, depending on who you ask. But, we're waiting. We're still closed. As many of you know, the SAT has been postponed until the August test, or the next administration has been canceled, which would have been in June. They don't really have a July SAT, so the next one will be August. Sadly, it's late August, but that's the state of where we're at. The ACT is not yet canceled for June and July. And we actually called them. So someone from my company, spent 45 minutes on hold or whatever was necessary to get through to them. Obviously, many of you have called them as well. I know some of the parents have been telling me. And they haven't canceled it. They're not canceling it, at least yet. We could debate that till we're blue in the face, whether that's right or wrong, or, will it actually happen or not? I can't tell you, but they're still doing it. So I think, June may be a little bit in question in New York, especially. I think other states might be a little bit better situation. And July, could be better. Hopefully it will be given. They're actually adding sites and dates for July. Many people don't know that. So they've added, July was never given in New York. They've added Uniondale and Long Beach, I think even now more. So they're trying to get schools on board with a July ACT. I think they're just intent on moving forward, whatever way they have to. And, we'll see what happens with that, but I'm going to kind of give my advice on all that in a second. If you do want information from the companies and keep updated on what's going on from them, and maybe not just from me, you have pages from both companies right there that contain all the updated information. I constantly check those and kind of troll their websites for information that I can find. You do actually find a lot of information that comes out before they actually tell everyone, which I found something today, which I might have been the first person to find it, but I'll tell you about that in a second. Anyone that registered for the May SAT should be refunded, and going forward, all these tests will be changing. So the big one coming up, College Board with the AP exams, they've announced that there are going to be 45-minute free response tests done online. They're only going to go up to the point where school kind of stops, so probably around March in terms of the material, and they claim they'll have various security measures to prevent cheating. They've even gone as far as to claim they will call the cops on kids that will cheat. It actually says something that they will call law enforcement when necessary on their website. Maybe they're going for more scare tactics than anything else. But and the other thing I've heard, which we'll debate in both directions, is that the AP tests may be less valuable this year than they were in the past. But there's not much of any value for kids this year. So what does have value is really my question. So I'm going to go over that first because that's obviously really close for a lot of students. It's in May, so it's very important. We've produced free study guides for 16 of the AP classes. You're more than welcome to download those. They are very thorough for the most part, and I had the instructors that tutor those subjects put together those study guides, so they are quite good, and we've disseminated those online. They've been downloaded over 30,000 times already. So I've got a lot of feedback, and kids say they're great, so definitely check those out. We haven't seen sample question, at least I haven't, of the new format, but now this is what I found out today by just messing around on the College Board site, that the software demo is now live. So you can go to this link here, AP 2020 exam demo.collegeboard.org, and you can actually demo what the test will look like. It has a timer. It has filling out your information. Now they say you should log in 30 minutes before, and I was asking, well, why is that the case? I figured that out today. It gave me a 5-minute countdown timer when I logged on to fill out my personal information, and then as soon as that timer was up, the test started. I didn't have an option. Like, I wasn't able to, to stop it or pause it. Like, it just started. So I think they want you to be early because the test is going to start on the button at, like, say, 2 o'clock. So if you're putzing around with your, person, you log on at, 1:55 thinking you're going to start the test, and they have like 3 pages of personal information, you're going to have a huge problem. So these are the kind of things that I figure out, and, maybe obviously a parent, like, you would think that way, but, a lot of students left to their own devices are going to log on at, 1:59 and realize they have 10 minutes of personal information to fill out and not be able to do the test. It's going to be a disaster. So I'm trying to let people know that information, but definitely take that and do what you will with it. Like I said, the College Board has listed the units that will be on the tests on their website, so you can go check that out. That's not incredibly helpful, but it's somewhat helpful. You can leave some stuff out. You don't have to study stuff that was taught after the whole Corona thing happened. So that's good. And you can also get updates on what's going on by looking at that link. They also have the dates of the exams. There's also a makeup date. A little bit about the makeup date. A lot of students have gotten the bright idea that they're just going to not do the test on the first date, so then they'll automatically be pushed over to the makeup date. That is correct. You would be pushed over to the makeup date if you just don't log in or you just can't take the test. I would not take those chances. I'm a little bit conservative in that regard. I mean, I know you could probably gain some kind of advantage doing that, like go on Reddit and see what the questions were. Like, you'd definitely be able to figure out what the questions were, but obviously they're going to have a new test for the second administration. So I just wouldn't, I wouldn't take that opportunity. If something happens the next time and that gets messed up, then you're really in a bad position. So I would definitely just take the test the first time. And if something does happen, then obviously you can take it the next time. So the big thing they announced recently was that these tests will not be curved. So typically they're these tests were given on a curve. Say, for example, on AP Bio, like something like, I think it's like 12% or 8%, I forgot which one, will get a 5, right? So just the top, say the test is out of 140 points, that whoever, they do a percentile analysis, the top 10% get a 5. No matter what those scores are, if they're all perfect scores, those people get a 5. If they're all, 80 out of 140, then those people get a 5. The top scores will get a 5, and then so on and so forth. They're not doing that this year. So what they're doing is they're basically saying whoever gets over a certain raw score threshold will automatically get a 5, whether that's 1% of people or 20% of people. Now, of course, everyone wants to talk, they try to, spin that as something that's good. Like, oh yeah, like unlimited number of 5s this year. So that's assuming that everyone's going to get, say, if it's out of 10, that's a, long answer question, that everyone who gets over an 8 out of 10 will get a 5. I think on one of the DBQs last year, the average score was like a 3.7 out of 10 or something. So like where they set the number will greatly dictate whether like everyone gets a 3, 4, or 5 or no one gets it. I think they're going to be a little bit lenient, obviously, because of the circumstances, but how that will actually work out, I think, is very, very uncertain. And that's a huge change because you're going from a curved exam to a not curved exam. So, the curve might help a lot of people in some instances, and it could also hurt you. So it's kind of, if they gave us more information of what the thresholds would be, then of course we would have a much better chance of knowing what will happen, but we don't know any of the thresholds. So it's going to be kind of difficult to evaluate that. But, hopefully they go a little bit on the lenient side, but then the problem with that is on the back end, then it devalues a 5. So if 50% of people get a 5, what does it really mean? You might get the college credit, but in terms of applying to college, doesn't really help that much. And of course, because of all this uncertainty and the difficulty with a new exam format and all that stuff, we're tutoring students in these subjects, and we've also started running online classes. So we've had a few of those. We have a few more. We're probably going to schedule more as we get closer to the test. But that's something that we've committed to, and a lot of people have invested in. So definitely, if you're interested in that, shoot me an email, and we'll get that set up. I showed this last time. I just wanted to keep it there just because I thought it was relevant. The APs will also be open book, open note, basically because they can't prevent anyone from cheating. So, from just pulling out their phone and going on Google. So they just said it's open note. I think the point is, and what I've learned is, there is absolutely no chance that you'll have the time to look up and synthesize the information in 45 minutes and write an essay about it. And so they know with the time structure and the stress that you could have whatever resources you want in front of you. You're not going to be able to answer the question. The only way you could do it is if someone actually just straight up told you, and that would be the main form of cheating I think that's going to happen, is like students sharing answers, or an older sibling or someone who's very knowledgeable willing to cheat and do the test for the student. That's what could work, but hopefully that won't happen. And I think, there's cheating on all exams. So I think they're going to have ways of checking for plagiarism and whatnot. So, I'm definitely concerned about it, but I'm not terribly concerned, to be honest. I guess we'll see. I could be wrong. I'm sure it could be very bad, so we'll see. But I think that's why a lot of colleges are putting a little less weight on it, and I'll go over that next. So we don't know, like I said before, we don't really know in terms of school closures, moving away from the APs a little bit, what's going on. I know many students now are really struggling to keep a schedule, and anyone interested in any kind of services in that regard, we're providing just general tutoring services in terms of keeping students on schedules and whatnot. We're also streaming live classes. I'll go over that. It's also on a schedule. I'm teaching those every day myself from 12 to 2. I think it's an increasingly valued opinion that this is actually a time where many students are going to overachieve in many areas and really build themselves up to a new level. And others obviously will just maybe stay status quo or regress a little bit, and that's going to widen the gap for the students that really excel at this stuff and those that don't. So I would suggest everyone use this opportunity to try to sharpen their skills. So obviously, a large bulk of this presentation, I wanted to go over the idea of test optional and what developments there have been. Obviously, many colleges have gone test optional, which is awesome for students that maybe don't have the opportunities. Cornell was the first Ivy to release test optional policy for this year. It's a trial period. Now, what they said in their statement, I thought was very, very interesting and indicative of what I've been saying for a while. And the statement is, despite waiving the requirement, the undergraduate admissions office also said that standardized test scores could still be a meaningful differentiator for students who live near or attend a school that will offer more testing this year, or if students have not experienced a significant loss in income for one or more household providers. The first time I read that, I think I probably had to read it like 15 times and I still don't really get what this means. Like, are they saying that like you're relieved from the SAT if your parent lost their job in the Corona situation? I mean, obviously that's a very sympathetic position that we're all, obviously I own a small business. Like, this is not fun by any means financially, but I'm not really sure how that directly impacts the student taking the exam. I mean, maybe if it was so severe that you couldn't afford the admissions fee to the test, I mean, obviously that would be a situation where I'd say that's very fair. A student couldn't take the test, but they also have free waivers and stuff like that. So my question is, what does that mean? If you have not experienced a significant loss in income for one or more household providers, you do need to take the test? And what does it also mean that if you attend a school that will offer more testing this year? So like, I guess, yeah, I mean, that I agree with. If, the nearest testing center that you possibly could have ever taken the SAT at was 150 miles away or more, then I would say, yeah, that's probably pretty reasonable. But, considering that it'll probably be given somewhere and also that they're giving it online, what does that mean? I just don't understand the statement. I mean, the level I understand what it means in literal sense, but I think there's like a deeper message they're sending there that they need to be more forthcoming and frank about. So I think that this is generally how a lot of the top colleges feel about those kind of policies, and it's a measure to engage in more fairness. So is test optional tied to geography? Is it tied to schools that give in-school testing versus schools that don't? You may not know this, but a lot of schools, especially in large cities, give test day SATs. I know they proposed that as a local measure recently, which it's never really been used, where they can give the SAT on like a Wednesday or a Tuesday like they do the PSAT. Is that what they're talking about? Because normally those tests are given in certain areas and not in certain areas, so that creates a huge issue. And then, is it tied to socioeconomic status? Is it like, okay, well, we're saying that if you experience income loss, then you don't have to take the test. I mean, if anyone has any questions or comments about what that means, or I'd love to answer them or hear what anyone has to say, because I thought that was a very interesting statement that really was quite peculiar, especially for the first Ivy League school to announce test optional. I thought that, obviously that's a big moment, and they have a community, right? It's a community of schools that would be the message. Was very interesting. So how does this impact me? So I feel like grades this year are going to be hard to evaluate. Obviously, many students are either being given the choice of pass-fail or being given pass-fail automatically. I've heard many colleges are considering how they're going to weigh these scores now. I think starting the process early for all of these tests is increasingly more important, so you have more options. I think those that already have a test on their resume are definitely in a little bit better position. Obviously, we hope these kind of things don't happen for the future and we're able to take the test, but you never really know. I think that the ACT is pushing so hard to continue with June and July in the face of obvious, like most people saying, how is that even going to be possible? I even had one parent communicate to me that someone told them over the phone, like, don't tell anyone this, but we can do it online if we need to, kind of situation. So, I mean, I don't know if that's, necessarily that one person on the phone for the ACT saying that, or that's actually a company policy, or, maybe they were just, trying to communicate something good to the parent, which I totally understand. But there's been a lot of ideas thrown around. I think they're trying to add dates for a reason. They're really trying to secure the future, impact of the tests. If they're able to bounce back and give them, it could actually make them more important. You never really know how that's going to play out, especially with the lack of grades. And some things I'm going to talk about next are going to be mind-blowing. Some things I learned today, actually. I have a question. Do you believe many more schools will become test optional? If not, will college at least take into consideration that it's been tough for students right now, especially for the 2021 class, so the students who are in juniors, who are juniors now? Yeah, I think more schools are going to be test optional, and I think a lot of colleges are going to take it into consideration. But I think the statement that one top college made was that, like, we're taking it into consideration if you financially can't afford it, which that's not really an answer that gives me any kind of assurance. I think in a lot of instances things will be good, but I'm unfortunately going to get to some very bad news shortly that will make this all make more sense. So yeah, bad news, but there's a major shift going on that I'm starting to get wind of, and I'll explain in a second. So let me just get through these next few pages. So Harvard was still requiring the SAT. They said applicants will not face a penalty if their high schools move to pass-fail grading system or they aren't able to retake the SAT. So they're still requiring it. Yeah, many schools, you can not submit it, but there's a large amount of risk doing that. And I actually attended a webinar today, which is I'm going to get to, but of college admissions people and whatnot, and they said, if all else is equal, you have two applicants that have equal stats, so to speak, and one has an SAT score that's good and the other doesn't, they're taking the one that has the good SAT score over the one that doesn't. So that's kind of, did I stop the, whoops, my bad. I accidentally stopped that share. Okay, cool. We have a few more questions. Will you be providing a copy of this presentation to those attending tonight? I surely can do that. That's not a problem. So just email me and I'll send it to you. No worries. So what are we doing? So we're adding more classes. I'm doing these free classes. We're continuing to update everyone about this stuff. We're trying to keep a continued schedule for people. We're trying to keep students' brains active because things are obviously tough for students right now, and we're providing whatever help we can, however we can. So, okay, a few big announcements. Want to move on to the really new good stuff. So a lot of people love the diagnostic testing that we were doing. Obviously, that's a big part of our program. What we did was we filmed a video of the proctor giving a diagnostic test, and we also came up with a product on our services page. So you can, for anyone that's a customer, it's free. But for anyone that's not, you can buy a diagnostic test. It's much cheaper because there's no live proctoring. It's a video. And you can basically, we have a proctoring video you can watch that will proctor the test for you, and the student can sit down. It's on YouTube and take the full exam with a proctor, telling them when to change over their sections and when to stop and when to, move on and whatnot. So, we did that, which is awesome. So now students can take a diagnostic test whenever they want. And any customer that wants to take a diagnostic test just have to email myself or one of the other staff members who is involved in that, and we will forward you the information for the diagnostic test. We will give you the test booklet. We will give you the YouTube video. All you have to do is return the Scantron, and then we will grade it and send you the diagnostic test just like before. So that's awesome. So anyone interested in that, let me know. I'm hugely happy about that we were able to get that done. We're also considering live proctoring options, so we're kind of gauging interest on that. If someone wanted like a proctor to proctor a test for them over Zoom, say, we could probably pull that option off without a doubt. We would just need, obviously, people will, that want to do that. Obviously, if it's not something that anyone's requesting, then we're not going to do it. But if that's what people want, then it's something that we're strongly considering. So we want to use this opportunity with many of our customers and new customer or potential customers and other parents in this webinar. If that's something you're interested in, please let me know. I'm happy to put that together. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, moving on to the good part. So like I said, I attended a webinar today, and I really got a very different picture of how things are going depending on who you speak to. So how does it impact school? Well, obviously online learning seems to be here for a while. Most tests will be moved online. The SAT tests will be flexible. They're adding a date in September, so they're adding more dates. The ACT is going to add more dates and different options for people. So things are really going to be more flexible. Now, the big one is a second point down below. I went backwards. Whoops. The second to last point, excuse me. Many students will be taking gap years. That is something that I've heard now. A lot of students talking about, big rumblings in the industry. It's gotten out with the college admissions consultants that the best practice for most students who are applying to a top college this year, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, is that a lot of them will be advising their students to take a gap year. Why? Well, one, they don't want to miss out on the college experience. If school is going to be online for the fall, who wants to start college online and pay $70,000 a year to go to college online? I mean, that just seems outrageous, I think, to a lot of people. There's obviously some issues there. Maybe they'll have to lower the cost. I'm going to go over that. But many students are going to take a gap year to avoid starting college under these circumstances and to avoid applying under these circumstances. Now, that said, what that's going to give a lot of people who are incredibly invested in this process is a lot more time to work on stuff. So a lot more time to study for the SAT, a lot more time to polish their applications, a lot more time to do other things. Now, some people will take the gap year after they're accepted. So they'll be accepted, like a lot of students that got their acceptances now are asking colleges for a gap year. A lot of the college consultants are telling students to do that. Put it off, work, travel, maybe not travel, but, work on something, explore yourself, maybe travel if things open up, do something constructive, but just not attend college for $70,000 and have online class, so I don't necessarily disagree with that in many ways. I mean, I can imagine if I was, high school senior, the idea of starting this experience that way is unsettling, to say the least. And any college students or former students that I've spoken with definitely feel that it's different, to say the least, and not what you would expect. So that said, because many students are taking a gap year, students that were on wait lists right now, or anyone who has a student that is on a wait list, which obviously you have to be a senior, that will make your chances of getting off that wait list huge. And I've heard reports of students even just calling and saying, "You're my top choice. I know I'm on the wait list. I heard a lot of people are taking gap year. What's up?" And then they're getting in. So that's a huge change, right? Because that's usually not a great position to be in. So what will this mean going forward? This is high level gold information here. Colleges will be accepting more students who do not require need-based aid, as they will need to replace international students. So many of you may not know exactly how this works. International students are the huge money maker for colleges. They almost always pay full tuition. They get no scholarships. A lot of them will be literally unable to come or apply or attend school because of rules in their country or travel bans and whatever. So their colleges are losing millions of dollars, right? So that needs to go somewhere else. They need to make up for that. So of course, anyone that has money to pay for college in full will probably have a great opportunity to get into a reach school because they're going to want the money. Now, obviously, there's more nuance to that, but as a general statement, it seems to be true. I've also heard that it will now be easier to transfer because transfers usually don't get scholarships or aid. So if you wanted to transfer to a top college, they'll probably take you just to have the money to replace the international students, which is a huge loss for many colleges. Some of these colleges are like 10, 20, 30% international students or something crazy like that. So that said, it will also be easier to get admitted to grad programs as well without the international students. Law school, med school, a lot of international students in those as well, especially law school and grad programs. it's that could cut both ways, because also, students graduating without jobs may opt to go to grad school, which would kind of even out the competitiveness. But I think generally speaking, it's going to drastically change, the landscape. Now, with college accepting gap years and deferrals, that is, and the point I wanted to get to was, okay, whatever, like class of 2020, you want to take your gap year, that's great. But now the dorm only has so many beds in it. Like it's just a limited amount of people they can take. If the maximum class, a small liberal arts college or like an IB can take is like, say, 5,000 or 3,000 or 1,000 or 10,000, whatever it may be, and like they have 20% deferrals, right? That means they can only accept 80% of what they normally would accept the next year. So class of 2021 admission cycle, if this actually takes place and transpires this way, will be very difficult, because it's going to be hyper competitive, because we're going to have all the gap year kids now coming back and going into dorms. Now, obviously, many of them may go into upperclassmen dorms. Like, there's ways around that, but it's basically going to make the competitiveness go up. Which I know, one of the things a lot of the students have been indicating to me, many of you know now, like, Nick, the whole Nick the Tutor thing. I'm on social media. I have, like upwards of 60,000 followers on various social media platforms, and I get 20, 30 kids contacting me a day now, asking me questions. Many students, I think, are hoping that this works out for everything to be easier for them. Like we're going to get into better schools. We're not going to have to do tests, and we're going to chill, and this is going to work out better. I think as time goes on, people are going to realize that that's probably the polar opposite of what's going to happen. It's only all going to get more difficult, more, thinking about what, we had Mr. Binder on last time, who's, very knowledgeable, and what is he encouraging kids to do at this time? He's encouraging kids to learn languages, start clubs, like, use the time wisely. Kids are going to be, I have kids that show up in my free SAT class every single day from across the country and the world. We have one student from Ireland. We have kids from Florida, California. I mean, they're just grinding. Like, certain people are just going to use this opportunity to absolutely grind out something that they would never be able to do, like learn a language or start a club or get better at the SAT. I mean, it's going to make it more competitive overall. Let's see, we have a question. Can they possibly allow an infinite number of incoming students to defer? That's a good question. I mean, everyone's not going to want to defer. I mean, that's probably not the case. I mean, one college consultant that I watched a webinar, he said that three quarters of his kids are deferring. And he said he works with like 200 or 300 kids with his company, with various consultants. So if they have 300 kids, I mean, obviously that's a small amount, but that's just one consultant. And he's telling them to defer. So that's why they're all deferring. Like, he's suggesting it. So I don't think it's like the kind of thing that's going to be, everyone is going to do. But I think it starts to get out. The information is getting out. I'm hearing more about that as an option. And it's making sense to me. Like let me pay $70,000 to like show up on Zoom. Like, I'm doing this for free right now. Not to say that college isn't incredibly valuable, but a lot of the value is the experience, right? Like, you go to local college or community college if you don't care about the experience as much. So that totally changes how this all works, and it totally changes everything for next year, because once people are going to want to go, they just don't want to go now because they don't want to do it online. So there's going to be less spots going forward, and I think that during the gap years and during the time off, what students do with gap years and time off is they increase their test scores. One of the tutors that works here got accepted to multiple law schools. He got a very good LSAT score, and he decided to defer for a year, and he's going to retake the test because now he just has the time. Like, why not? So it actually, some people treat it that way. Like, he's, he works here, so he's in tune with tests and he wants to be good at them, and he is good at them, of course. But he weighed his options, and he got several full ride offers from multiple law schools. And he said, you know what, I don't want to go to online law school, even if it's for free. And I'm going to roll the dice next year with a better score. He's going to study more. So I think it really depends on how people, look at it. Do you think NY CUNY schools will go test optional? Probably, yeah. I would imagine. I think almost every school is going to go test optional, except for maybe the top 20 or 30. But even some of those, like Cornell, as an IB, that's test optional. But like I was saying, and in their statement, I think people are getting misled by the allure of not having to do the test. It's not that simple. You have to submit something positive in return. So, okay, so I have these 3 months off from school, and I could be studying for the SAT, and say it starts getting given again. Say the ACT is given in, say, even just July, and SAT is given in August, and we're back to doing the SAT, and you didn't do it, and you decide to not do it. And there's tons of kids applying with it, and you did nothing with this time. Then you're definitely not going to get a good outcome. I mean, you have to do something with the time. You have to replace the time you would spend on something else. Even if school is test optional, isn't it best to submit it anyway? Yeah, if it's, of course, optional means you don't have to. I just want to go back to the statement that they made from Cornell. The statement is, it still can be a meaningful differentiator for students who live near. So it's if you can take the test or if you have not experienced significant loss of income for one or more household providers. So that's pretty much anyone who can take it and who hasn't had a massive financial hardship, which I think if you kind of read between the lines there's more to that statement than it actually seems. I think, and I agree, it is 100% totally fair for students that do not have the resources or the availability to take tests, that this year especially, they do not have to take them. I mean, I think anyone would agree that is 110% a fair move. And students that do have the resources to take the tests and study for them, I think are expected to produce a score. And like I said, it came from a source that if 2 students are equal, we're taking the kid with the score over the kid without the score. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. If it got to the point where they're like, okay, we have 2 equal students and one has a 1400 on the SAT and the other didn't submit it, and we're talking about a mid to high ranked college, and they start going with the kid who didn't submit the score, then the test is totally dead. I mean, then why ever take it, right? But that's obviously not the case. I think we have to read between the PR campaign of test optional and see for what it really is. Basically, if you don't send your scores, you need to have a heavy resume, or else why would, exactly. So with the statement here, basically, if you don't send your scores, you need to have a heavy resume, or else why would they take you? So yeah, you need to replace it with other exceptional things and, have a reason. I think they're really looking for like a reason why you're not taking it. It's not just like, don't take it if you don't want to. It's like, well, it's optional. You don't have to do it, but if you're such a great student, why are you not doing it? What's missing? Oh, well, I had a family hardship. I had a parental death, or God forbid, or both my parents lost their job. I couldn't focus on it. Like, okay, that I totally see as, okay, we will give that student every benefit of the doubt. They deserve it. That is fair, right? That's what Cornell is saying. You have some sort of catastrophic situation, or like no center in your area gives the test at all for the next 6 months. Then I would say, of course, that's extremely fair. If you have a solid GPA but your ACT does not reach the requirements, it's still worth to send your score. I mean, that's a very specific question. It greatly depends on how what school you're applying to. Yeah, and I got the comment, follow-up comment. Thank you for confirming what I've been telling my child for weeks. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed this. Like I said, I'm getting messages from hundreds of kids weekly. I just logged into my website. I had 23 new messages from students, and many of them are like just banking on the fact that they're going to like be relieved of all their obligations, and that's just not the case. Like, I know there's going to be people that are going to sell you that dream, and there's going to be people that are colleges are going to do the PR campaign, say we're test optional, and many kids will benefit from that. Surely, I mean, that's 100% the case. I would never dispute that. But I think there's a large amount of PR and spin that's being put on that. And, I guess we'll just have to see, if kids apply test optional with no other credentials and start getting into high ranked colleges, then the SAT is totally dead. Why do it? You have nothing else you have no need to prove that you can do a test. You know what I mean? And I guess that's a possibility. But at the end of the day, colleges aren't going to be accepting those students. And I think it is fair that a student with A+ resume, application, essays, grades, and a B- SAT gets in. I think that's fair, right? That's just fair. Like, that student is A+ in everything. They have research, they have community service, they're incredible. They've achieved so much in such a short time. But they just can't do the test to the level of a top college for whatever reason. That student deserves some level of accommodation, right? But that doesn't apply to those without a stellar resume. And if you remember the last presentation with Mr. Binder, what counts as exceptional, I think, is also extremely misconstrued by a lot of parents, talking to other parents, unfortunately, and stuff like that, because, you have like, oh, I'm the co-captain of the soccer team, which I was. I'll use myself as an example. That's not impressive. There's 6 co-captains of every soccer team in all 50,000 high schools, and it's just, that's not. I mean, I'm not trying to, I'm not pointing out sports in general. I played a sport in college, but I'm saying something like that like 15 other kids at your school could say that they do, is not something that replaces the SAT requirement. Maybe if you spend your summer doing research with a college professor and you have like a paper to show for it, that is something that can replace the SAT, because that takes 3 months to complete. Not something that's, everyone in history can say they've done, right? And like I said, in the webinar that I attended today, it was college consultants and experts and stuff, and they're just pushing their, with this time, the people that are paying for those services are like, one of the guys was like, I'm having most of my students start websites for whatever charities I've had them create, and whatever our ideas are, we're all building a website right now. So as every single one of his students building some sort of web presence, and for whatever, one's doing a charity, one's doing one's interning for a video game company online somehow. He's learning how to code. One kid's learning a language, and they're creating websites to showcase this and teach it. So, what actually will replace the SAT is, obviously, if you're going test optional, you're replacing it with something. It's not, being a member of a club, starting the club, right? It's inventing the club, not just being a member, not being the president even, So I know it's an opportunity for students to push for doing less, and I'm just marking this moment in time right now that all the students that think of this as their opportunity to just skate through it are going to be severely disappointed in 2021 when they apply to college, and college consultants and all kinds of other people are doing things with their time. Not to toot my own horn, but before this all happened, I had no interest in social media or time doing it. I just didn't see I knew there was value, but I just didn't have the time. And I was like, you know what? I have time now. Let me just, work on it a little bit and focus on it. And it's transformed what we do here. I have, not to go into the details, but, our web hits have gone up 20,000%. That's a lot, so all a student needs to do is make some sort of small amount of impact on one person. I mean, they want to start making, virus masks and put them on Etsy and charge 1 cent so that you can do a charity, or give them away for free, and put some kind of motivational quotes on the front of them or something. I'm just spitballing here. That is an achievement, you know what I mean, in the eyes of a college. It's very hard to explain. I know it's kind of mind-blowing how this is all kind of transformed. 20 years ago, or when I applied to college, which was even 16 years ago, it's just you just fill out the application, you have a test score and a GPA, and that's it. Didn't even matter what else you did. Good GPA, good test scores, boom. but it's totally changed, you know, and obviously test scores are one component, your GPA is one component, everything else you do is one component, but you can't leave one of those components out to get into a top college. It doesn't matter which one it is, you know. So let's see. What about schools who recommend multiple SAT subject tests? Hard to get those. Yeah, almost all of those schools have removed that requirement. Yale isn't even taking them. MIT isn't even taking them. That was like, you know, engineering was one of the huge ones where you really have to get the subject test down, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's not as important. It still can show a lot of competency. Don't get me wrong. If you are good at it, I would still do it. But if it's recommended, it's probably just not required anymore. Like, you can submit it, but you don't have to. And I think that, you know, like I was just saying in my very long-winded explanation, I encourage all students to just take this time to do at least just one constructive thing. I mean, all you have to do is spend 30 minutes a day on it, and you'll have something to prove for it at the end. And I think, you know, if you are trying to go test optional or relieve your, you know, improve your college application or whatever it may be, you just spend 30 minutes on it every day, like during this time, and you'll get there. You know, you'll achieve something really awesome. You know, and we can achieve a lot. So I think that, you know, using this time wisely is just greatly undervalued. And I think, you know, my last point on this slide is that I think colleges are actually going to be asked to lower tuition. I just don't see how they charge the amount that they charge, you know, if it's online. It just doesn't seem fair. Part of it is the campus experience. I mean, forget just the learning experience, just the campus, the experience of it, walking in and just the whole experience is now taken away. And I think, you know, that's going to be a huge change. Are subject tests being offered? Another question that came in. They're offering them once they start offering the tests again. So we'll see. So let's say the impact going forward. Again, another slide about that. Students will have greater ability to negotiate merit scholarships and ask for matching as incentives. Now, why is that the case? Because colleges are going to have a real weird situation now with a lot of kids deferring or taking gap years. So you're going to have things open up for some students now, which is the huge positive. It's like many students will be able to take advantage of that and call up a school and be like, hey, you're my number one choice. Like, I know a lot of people are dropping out. Like, can you open up some money for us? And they might do it. So there's going to be a lot more negotiating capability. There's going to be a lot more stuff going on like that. So I think this is a huge opportunity for students who are willing to attend right now. I think that if you're willing to attend college and pay to go to online school in the fall, if that happens to be the case, hopefully not, but it may be. I think if you're willing to just commit and pay the down payment and say, you know what, I'll pay the 70 grand to go to Yale or whatever it is, but you got to take me now. That's a conversation that can be entertained right now that never would be entertained before. Like I was saying, I think students developing their resume in any way right now, obviously, is very difficult, and I totally understand that. You can find any way to develop your resume. If anyone wants to like email me or call me, they have a question about what someone can do, you know, I'm happy to provide whatever, you know, quick advice I can. But if you can do anything to develop your resume during this time, I think you're going to like have really good results with your college applications in the future, especially against all the students coming back for deferrals and gap years and for the students applying next year. And what I've heard and what's being thrown around now is that next year is actually going to be even more competitive because of all the deferrals and what's going on. And like I said, one college consultant, which I read, reported that 3/4 of his students were taking a gap year now. And obviously any international student that was able to get accepted is going to have to take a gap year. And like I said, you know, and because of all this information I've been gathering, I'm starting to realize that people that seek this kind of advice from presentations like this that I'm giving now, or from college consultants or whatever, are going to take a very different course than everyone else. I think that like there's going to be very diverse. I think there's going to be a lot of different options for people. You know, you could just attend, you could negotiate lower, you know, a higher scholarship, you can defer. I mean, there's just so many options. It actually makes it more chaotic. I've heard that early decision deadlines will likely be pushed back. Obviously, that's not confirmed yet, but I think that's the case for students next year. And I think, unfortunately, the realist brain that I'm using right now realizes that this is going to be more of a difficult process than for students going forward than they want to anticipate. And the students that I think accept that and just like adapt to it and just do something with their time and study more and like make sure they get good test scores when the tests come back, and just use their time wisely and for something useful will get very good results. And the students that don't, I think, are going to get bad results. That's just my opinion. And then my final thoughts. Obviously, I'm not doing this presentation to talk about the coronavirus in particular, but looks like things are on a trend for better, which is great. I'm happy about that from a personal perspective for everybody. I think we should decide if the SAT, ACT is right for the student, if they have the opportunity to take it, if they can take it, or if you can't, which obviously is going to be some students. It's going to be canceled. It's going to be impossible to just make it happen. Those students should just go test optional, obviously, because then you have a very good reason why, But I think if you do have a chance to take it, you probably should. And I think I didn't mention this, but I think anyone who is planning on taking the SAT or the ACT should probably try to register for that July ACT just as a precaution. Obviously, we're not, there's total social distancing right now, quarantining. So anyone interested in any online prep or tutoring or services, just give me a call. We're doing that. And I think overall, obviously, hopefully we continue to trend towards improvement. We don't go back to work and school too fast, too quickly, and have a regression, which obviously they've been throwing that idea around. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We're able to just move past this sooner rather than later, and get past this and move on. Let's see. Do you think the December application deadlines will be pushed out or remain in place? Another question that just came in. I think they're going to be pushed back. They have to be. I just don't see how that's possible that they're not. Let's use this time. Anyone has any questions, please, type those up now. I'm happy to answer. I definitely, reserved some more time for that. So anyone that has any questions, please shoot those over now and I'll answer them one by one. You're very welcome. It says, thank you for all your help. You're very welcome. I really appreciate you guys joining in. Let's see. If we register for the June ACT, does it automatically go to August or do we re-register? The June ACT is not canceled. The June SAT is canceled, and that is not automatically, I think, going to be pushed to August. You'll have to somehow go into your account and register, but they haven't announced the official date of it yet, so you can't actually register for the August SAT. There is no August ACT at the moment, and the June and July ACTs are still happening, according to the ACT company, and we called them earlier this week. So as of right now, it's happening. Obviously, that may change. It may be like a thing where they give it, and some schools don't do it, and it's closed, in some states or whatever, and other states it is given, just like the March SAT. That I don't really know. Let's see, very informative. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys coming on. Will you keep us updated or student? We will. Yeah. So I'm doing these webinars whenever I have new information. So I will surely, update anybody if anything else comes out. I constantly update information on my YouTube channel and my TikTok. A lot of the students see that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but there's so many questions. I'm just trying to read them all. We will be doing more webinars, Cynthia, for further updates. So we also send out emails. If anyone's on our email list, we do send out a lot of informative emails, and I also post on various social media platforms about updates on a daily basis. Could I speak more about the daily prep class you offer? So I'm doing a free class right now from 12 to 2. 12 to 1 is SAT, 1 to 2 is ACT. It's just a free review class. I'm just going through passages and questions. It's not like a formal class like we normally would have, but it's more of an informal class, obviously to keep students going. We're going to have formal paid classes for upcoming tests. We're doing Zoom, not Zoom, but online classes right now. We do online tutoring, tutoring a ton of students online. All of the tutors have students that we're meeting with. Obviously many have put a pause on their tutoring because their test is many months away, but we're still doing all that. So if you have any specific questions, you can definitely shoot me an email, give me a call. We also do classes in schools when they're open, and we were asked by some schools already to do those online. So I guess going forward, maybe over the summer, we typically have summer programs at a few local schools. We're going to try to do those online so we can do those anywhere. We work with numerous schools, and we've been in touch with them about what we're going to be doing going forward. Let me see here. Let's see. Will taking college online courses count as being productive activity for resume building? There are a lot of universities offering online classes. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, that's definitely good. That's definitely that's not bad. That won't hurt. I think, something that you can do that's like unique is always better. I would say that's like a good thing to do for sure. I think sharpening language skills, starting something that you can put your name on really is the holy grail. Whether it be a club, a charity, a lot of students are like starting online clubs, Google Classrooms, a lot of students are doing that. They're trying to help other students, tutor them and work with them. Various things like in that nature could be helpful. And obviously, any students looking, to think about ideas like that are more than welcome to give me a call. I'll happily, try to guide them in the right direction. The power of the internet is huge, and there's a lot you can do. You're very welcome. So thank you. This is very informative. So you're very welcome. No problem. Let's see. I have heard that if you register for the June SAT, you will be given first preference for August. Is that true? Yeah, that is supposedly true. I do feel that will be 100% the case. How they're going to do that, I don't exactly know. Maybe they'll just have like a certain number of spots reserved for those students. But yeah, they're definitely going to give preference to students that were registered for these tests and really need to take them. So I think that's an important and valid point. So yeah. All right, any other questions there? I mean, I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes if anyone has any other questions. And obviously, if you have any questions that were more private in nature, like you wanted to ask me something in particular about your student or yourself, if you're a student, or you wanted to discuss something else, you can always give me a call. My number is up on the screen. That's actually goes directly to my phone. And you have my email address, nick@curvebreakerstestprep.com, and I'll also be found on various social media platforms. So yeah. If anyone has any further questions, please call me or email me. And other than that, I thank you guys for coming to the presentation. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully this was informative. I think there's going to be a lot more developments, going forward pertaining to what exactly happens with college next year. I think that's something that we didn't really consider, right? Like, will college even be open? How will it conduct itself? Like, what will it be like? Will people want to do it? I think there, a scary thought is like students reject online college. Like, people reject paying for online school. They'll do it for free, right? Like, they'll do high school for free because it's free, but like, what are you really getting out of that? Some students are getting a lot out of it, others are getting very little. So like, what do we do? will kids want to pay, will families want to pay that much money for something that's online? When this is hostage situation over, you're gonna get the biggest batch of cookies. I am accepting cookie donations. That's the only form of payment that I accept. That or a subscription to my YouTube channel. But I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You know, I endeavor to provide a value to all of you above and beyond just tutoring your kids and teaching the classes and whatnot. Hopefully I'm doing that. That's something that I've really strive to do, and I think during these difficult times, not nickel and dime all the families for information that normally we would provide, and in fact try to provide more information for everybody. I noticed there's a lot of things being thrown around, and companies, obviously everyone's trying to make a buck, and it's difficult out there, but I think a lot of this information just needs to be provided for free. And I'm actually recording this webinar, so I'm probably going to post it on YouTube or something like that. So anyone that didn't check it out can, other parents want to check it out. I'm going to try to post it online so people can watch it and learn about this stuff. And maybe I'll plan one for like mid-May. I'm sure we'll have some updates by then, which will be interesting. Maybe there'll be more movement towards gap years and stuff like that. It's crazy because I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. And I just it's not something that I considered, because that's not hugely common with the students that come to us. In other areas of the country and certain students, it is very popular to take gap years or prep school years. And I posted about that on TikTok about 2 hours ago, and it has 100,000 views already, because kids are so enamored by this concept of like people taking a gap year to avoid, going to school under these circumstances. And I think the trickle down effect of that being a reality, or just the general effect of the disruption, is going to be incalculable at this moment. And that's why I'm urging students to like try harder rather than do less. But I will leave you guys with that. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for joining on. And I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all soon. So thanks a lot. Have a good night. Oh, I have one more question. Sylvia, what's up? Students who take a gap year have to defer acceptances or reapply. So that's a great question. So there's both. Some students have been accepted and have just asked the school to take a gap year. The guy who I was talking about, who suggested that 3/4 of his kids take a gap year, he said every kid that's asked Georgetown has been allowed to. So they're just totally allowing students to take a gap year no matter what at this point. Obviously there may be some limit. So they're accepted and they're just going to start next year. And then other people will just not apply or just not matriculate into any school, retake the SAT or ACT and reapply. Work for a year, or build up their resume for a year, probably retake the test if it's not good, and come back stronger. So that's what I'm saying. It's not only are you going to have kids who are just simply deferred their acceptance to the next year and are going to be coming in, taking up spots, but you're also going to have kids that are just going to say, I don't want to go to college yet. I'm going to take a year of work and come back with a stronger resume and more maturity and more, everything. So it's very unfortunate for the students that have to, go through this, but some people will turn it into a positive. Like, I don't want it to be like a negative statement, like, oh, it's bad for everybody. It's not going to be good overall, I think, for most applicants, but some people will find a way to rise above this, as many people will. That's what they always say about these kind of catastrophes. It's like people find a way to rise above these challenges, and the ones that rise above the challenges during the challenging times, come out like a rocket. And the people that don't rise above the challenges during the challenging times just kind of stay status quo. They might not necessarily be just, their life isn't over. It's fine, but it's going to be more difficult because it's going to be more competitive, because some people are going to use this opportunity. Just think about it from a business context. Some people are going to push their business forward and come up with new stuff and, you know, take the time to grow and learn something about themselves or whatever, you know, this case may be. And other people are gonna collapse, you know, sadly. It's hard, you know, it's terrible, but you know, and obviously I'm here to help all the students, you know, rise above. So that's what I do. That's what I'm dedicated to doing. So any students want to, you know, contact me directly and speak about it. That's usually the best way, is I can guide them in the right direction. Alrighty, thank you very much. I will leave it at that. And if you have any further questions, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer, and have a great night. Thanks a lot.